What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 8 of the FanDuel Football Multiverse, where we explore various what-if scenarios and see how things could have been different across the NFL. And today, we're going to ask, what if the Browns had drafted Lamar Jackson first overall in the 2018 draft instead of Baker Mayfield? I am Jim Sonis, a senior writer and analyst at numberFire, joined here by JJ Zachariason, editor-in-chief of numberFire and FanDuel. JJ, Baker Mayfield has shown flashes in his first 2 seasons with the Browns, but Lamar Jackson is the reigning MVP. So what are you expecting to see here as he gains guys like Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry?
Should be pretty interesting. You know, the last time we saw Lamar in this Madden simulation, it wasn't the prettiest game in the world for him. I think he threw a pick 6, actually, like the first play of the game, or one of the first plays,
quick,
or just an interception. But it's kind of a difficult game, I think, for both you and me, because we're both kind of Baker and Lamar stans.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that sort of plays out with our own, personal fandom. And then they're playing my Steelers, too.
I know.
They're playing my Steelers, so
you're being pulled in
like
16 different directions here.
Yeah, man.
Whereas me, it's just like, I'm not going to bash Baker, but I'm still going to say a lot of good things about Lamar because it's really hard not to. But I think it's interesting to look back at that 2018 draft because if I were in the Browns' position, I probably would have done the same thing that they did. And obviously that was not the right process, and that was not the right result because, Lamar Jackson was a freaking MVP, so that was the wrong pick. But I also understand where the Browns were coming from. It's still fun to see what it could have looked like, though, had they gone with Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. The Ravens didn't even know what they got with Lamar because they drafted Hayden Hurst ahead of Lamar Jackson. So let's be real there, too.
James Conner getting the first carry there for the Steelers, picking about 10 yards. And not only do we get to see Lamar Jackson on the Browns, but we get to see Ben Roethlisberger healthy with this Steelers offense once again. Missed almost the entirety of last year, bringing guys like Juju Smith-Schuster back into the fold. Even James Conner gets a boost there as well. Juju, $12,500. Big Ben himself, $15,000 on FanDuel. And James Conner, also $12,500. Those are the most expensive Steelers for this game. Lamar, the most expensive player in the game as a whole, at $15,500. Another run there for James Conner. Very un-Steelers-like, at least when Big Ben has been at the helm, because whenever Big Ben's been healthy, it's always seemed like they just want to throw, and from a fantasy perspective, I am all for it usually.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be shocked, though, if we see a little bit of ground and pound, just given that we're playing Madden here. But we are in arcade mode.
That's true, yeah. We saw chats. We do see you. We don't always respond, but we see you. And we saw what we're talking about with wanting this to be arcade mode. So going forward, starting with this game, it will be arcade mode rather than simulation. Apparently Ben Roethlisberger did not get the memo.
Not great, Ben. Not great.
Is that elbow good, man? You good? We will be doing arcade mode from here going forward, and that does change things from a DFS perspective because quarterbacks need touchdowns to pay off, and the odds they get more touchdowns are higher now with this being in arcade mode rather than simulation mode.
Yeah, it was a much needed change after
Stephen Hauschka in the MVP slot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we had the Hauschka game, but we've listened. We try to listen to people and what they're saying and take their feedback and make this a better experience for everyone, including us. Honestly, we want entertaining games too, guys.
I don't know. I don't know about you. I love a good Stephen Hauschka game, so I'm not going to say anything too bad about that. I was personally just ecstatic every time Hauschka would come out on the field. I was ready for that. But Juju Smith-Schuster picking up the first down there. Juju, a pretty interesting guy for this year because we've seen the highs with Juju Smith-Schuster when he was playing alongside Antonio Brown. And then last year, it looked like he was primed for a breakout year, maybe getting, a 27-ish% target share, a really massive number. But then, of course, Big Ben gets hurt, and Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges weren't able to support a good offense. The Steelers had to go with this, I guess, kind of college-y type offense. And it kind of, puts Juju in a spot where everyone's pointing at him as a breakout candidate, or a re-breakout candidate, I guess I should say. JJ, what are your thoughts on Juju heading into 2020?
Yeah, I feel like the fantasy community in general sort of is just blaming the quarterbacks for his down season last year when he was banged up throughout the season. That was definitely, definitely played a role in some way. Now I think he's a great value because you can get him in the 4th round often and redraft in best ball leagues. So I like Juju where he's going. And the good part, part of what people were down on with Juju last year, if you were down on him, was the fact that AB was gone, so you didn't know what sort of coverage Juju would see and how it would all play, if he was going to play a lot more on the outside or in the slot. He actually played a very similar snap share in the slot last year. But now you have some up-and-coming players like Deontay Johnson, who, for all intents and purposes, he's obviously not Antonio Brown, but he can play that type of role in this offense. And so if Deontay Johnson has his year 2 breakout, which I think he's as likely as any of those rookie wide receivers from last year to do so. Ooh, big play.
James Washington down the sideline there. Right as we were talking about Deontay Johnson, James Washington bursts out. But Washington is higher on the depth chart on Madden. You can look at the default roster to see that. And Big Ben finds him down the sideline there. James Washington, $8,500. Deontay Johnson is $6,000 for this game. But all of the expectations for the Steelers offense ride on the arm of Big Ben, and that's scary given the age, given that he's had injury issues in the past. He missed almost all of last year, but I think it's at least encouraging to see him working out with the team. We've seen some videos of that. It doesn't mean he's fully healthy, but it's better than seeing nothing, as James Conner gets some space there and gets inside the 5. But it's good to see Ben doing something at least.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And to finish my thought with Deontay Johnson, I think that even though he's getting a lot of hype, it makes sense. It's warranted. Of all rookie wide receivers in a great class last year, he led the league in receptions among all rookie wideouts. So he's someone who definitely could break out this year. And if he does, that's actually going to help Juju, I think.
Absolutely. As Conner gets the carry and goes in for the touchdown. So starting things off in a big way. James Conner benefiting from the arcade mode. He is up to 40 yards rushing already and that touchdown. If you forked over $12,500 on the salary for him, feeling pretty good after he gets into the end zone there.
Yeah, I mean, I love me some James Conner. Not only am I born and raised Pittsburgh, everyone, I don't live there anymore, but I'm born and raised Pittsburgh, and then I go to Pitt. So I'm a Pitt guy. Yep. James Conner is everything to me.
Absolutely. Chris Boswell for the extra point, and he gets that as well. So that means we're going to get to see Lamar Jackson in his first drive, weirdly, in a Browns uniform. It's going to be disorienting, to say the least, to see Lamar there. But should be a whole lot of fun. This is our second stream, as you mentioned, with Lamar Jackson. The first one was up against Michael Vick. Freddie Kitchens back on the sidelines for the Browns. I was not emotionally prepared to see that.
I wasn't either. I was not either. I almost wanted to forget his name before I saw that.
Far too much exposure to various Browns players in best ball drafts last year, and I kept on chasing Odell Beckham in DFS because his target shares were so good. He would still get a bunch of targets and stuff like that, so I'd still use him, and every week we're disappointed. So seeing Freddie Kitchens just kind of brings me back into this regressed state that I don't want to be in.
Yeah, I'm excited for the offense this year, though, with Kevin Stefanski.
Absolutely. Stefanski, rid of Mike Zimmer, potentially opening things up a bit more. I mean, it's hard to tell what he'll be now that he's independent, but I think that what we can know is that Stefanski's going to run some play action, and that generally leads to pretty good results. So should be a whole lot of fun. All right, here he is, Lamar Jackson, in the huddle for the Browns. Again, $15,500 was his FanDuel salary. Down 7-0 already, but a lot of weapons here. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, all in the fold here. Going to be interesting to see how things go here for this Browns offense.
And I would assume that David Njoku's better in Madden than he was in 2019 also.
I would hope.
Yeah, exactly.
That was not pretty at all. Nick Chubb finding some space and gets a face mask penalty. So
is that Chubb or Hunt?
That actually might have been Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, saw some hair at the end there.
Right. So 15 extra yards there. And the Browns moving the ball early. Freddie Kitchens feeling it. Back on the sideline. Free Freddie Kitchens. He's feeling good. I like it. All right.
How is Freddie Kitchens is larger than Andy Reid in this game?
Yeah. They didn't get the memo about the quarantine Freddie Kitchens. I'm sure looking slim.
Right. Yeah. He's got to be working at the home workouts. I know some YouTube channels that Freddie can use.
I don't know if he's got the same elliptical that Andy Reid has in his film watching area, but if we can all get on the Andy Reid regimen, I think we could all be better for it. This one is Chubb for sure.
There we go.
And he gets about a yard, it looks like, before he is taken down. And that'll bring up 2nd down and 9 for this Browns offense, which has rebuilt its offensive line, thankfully, this offseason between Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills. They're not in this Madden simulation, so the offensive line's still not going to be a strength. but for 2020, they certainly will be. Very curious how the 2018 draft would have played out had this actually happened. Like, let's say the Browns knew somehow that Lamar Jackson was going to be this, like, all-world type player as he throws a nice pass out there and completes it to, it looks like Odell Beckham. Yeah, Odell Beckham down the sideline there. Let's say they knew Odell Beckham or Lamar Jackson was going to be what he was. How did the dominoes fall after that? Like, would the Giants still have taken Saquon Barkley? Would the Jets maybe have gotten... would they have gotten Baker, or would they have still gotten Sam Darnold? Right. There was a lot of interesting ripple effects of how things would have played out if this one domino had fallen differently at the top.
Yeah, and thinking about that draft off the top of my head, I'm thinking like, what would Arizona have done, right? Yeah. Like maybe they would have been the team that got Baker, because it wouldn't surprise me. Baker was really, really divisive coming out.
Yeah.
You had the Browns obviously were high on him. And understandably so from an analytics perspective. That's what a lot of analytical people thought, and they at the time had some influence there. But who knows? He could have fallen a good bit if they opted for someone like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I know the Jets, the word was the Jets were high on Baker Mayfield too, and they picked third. But it's always hard to tell how much of that is like, 2020 and trying to like put yourself in a good position, as Lamar does complete that one once again. Nice start here for Lamar Jackson, 3 of 3 for 37 yards. Completions to a couple of completions to Odell Beckham and one to Jarvis Landry as well. Then if we play out this scenario, like let's say the Browns go Lamar, the Giants still go Saquon, the Jets go Sam Darnold. There were a lot of rumors that the Patriots were in play to potentially trade up for a guy like Baker Mayfield. That would have been really interesting. I know we've had a couple of Patriots simulations. Another one coming up tomorrow here as well, because we're going to do what would have happened if the Patriots had kept Jimmy Garoppolo and pit him up against his old quarterback mate, Tom Brady, on the Buccaneers. That one's going to be really fun. I'm pretty excited for that one. Make sure you're back here 8 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow on the FanDuel YouTube page to check that one out. Can still get your DFS lineups in for that one as well. Go to FanDuel.com to check that out under the NFL tab to get your lineups in for Garoppolo versus Brady. 2nd down and 1. Handoff goes to Chubb, gets the outside corner, and gets the touchdown. So a couple of running back tutties to open this thing up. One by James Conner, one by Nick Chubb. And arcade mode being very kind to the running backs thus far. Chubb, $13,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, it's good to see some more scoring. Honestly, it's good to see less punting. We're seeing drives down the field and third down conversions actually happening. So hopefully everyone's enjoying this more than they enjoyed the other ones, which were still entertaining. This is just more entertaining.
Punting is an art, JJ. Again, if we could have had the punters in the player pool, they would have been stars for the past couple of.
That's very true.
Past couple of games.
No lies detected.
The Wentz versus Mahomes matchup was pretty fun. I definitely enjoyed that one, but it's nice to see the running backs getting some lanes here and making this a 7-7 game as we kick off this second quarter. Unfortunately, didn't get to see a ton out of Lamar. Did those 3 completions, and he looked good, but then Nick Chubb was the guy hitting pay dirt. So $15,500 for Lamar Jackson, devoid of one touchdown drive there, but still a lot of time left in this game. Freddie Kitchens working his magic with the referees on the sidelines. I completely overlooked the Freddie Kitchens, can we call this a revenge game? Like, he gets to coach the Browns again, except with Lamar? Like, how does that work?
But if you're Freddie Kitchens, you want to drive them into the ground almost.
True.
Right?
Exactly. Especially if you take the Hugh Jackson route where you just go scorched earth after you leave.
It's wild though. When they hired Freddie Kitchens, I was pro Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah.
It was just you thought you had someone that was a leader. But my theory with NFL coaches too is that they don't always have to be the best schemers in the world. Right. I think Mike Tomlin's actually a good example of this, where he's more of like the leader. Look,
CEO.
Yeah, right. And Mike Tomlin was able to hide Antonio Brown for how many years? My goodness, Mike Tomlin is a saint, being able to do what he did with the stars on that team. And I know that everyone sees that like the AB stuff came to fruition and he blew up. The Le'Veon Bell situation was handled that way as well. But at the same time, we've seen some of these players in other locations. Antonio Brown wasn't even able to play a snap for Oakland, right? So I think that's
Oakland.
Right. I think Tomlin's underrated from that perspective. He's a little bit overrated when it comes to like his in-game management and that kind of stuff. So there's different types of, Kyle Shanahan's a schemer. He's probably a great leader too, but he's more of the schemer type, right?
Right.
Whereas with Freddie Kitchens, I thought it was more of the leader type, and then he was not that at all.
Yeah, the hope was that he would be both, because you'd see like those clips with him and Baker on the sidelines from last year, and like it seemed like they got along really well. And there was never any like reports that Baker and Freddie Kitchens' relationship went away. It was more so it seemed like he was a leader based on the way he and Baker interacted. Turns out the scheme may not have been as good as we thought, and the leadership definitely wasn't with all the penalties and stuff. So definitely took a sharp turn towards the bad end of the range of outcomes there for Freddie Kitchens. Another carry for James Conner. We saw Vance McDonald there earlier on. No Eric Ebron in this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers because he did sign later on, but interesting addition to that roster. Eric Ebron, during our Colts stream, was it the Deshaun Watson game potentially? Eric Ebron went like nuts.
Towards the end of the game. Yeah, like no one was doing anything, and then Eric Ebron just had like this 60-yard fourth quarter, like end of the fourth quarter, like final drive line. Yeah,
it was pretty cool. It was definitely fun to watch. Big Ben jostling around Juju Smith-Schuster there.
That is the last thing that Ben Roethlisberger would ever do in a huddle, by the way.
Does he care enough to like
I'm not sure. Ben Roethlisberger low-key is like Jay Cutler. He just doesn't get the attention that Jay Cutler does.
Right, exactly. James Conner gets the carry and keeps the feet moving, picks up a first down. 9 carries, 52 yards, and a touchdown for James Conner. The touchdown for the Browns went to Nick Chubb, a very running back-centric game thus far on both sides. Just running directly in the back of Vance McDonald and eventually picking up the first down.
I love that we switched to arcade mode and we're like, passing, it's gonna happen. And then no, it's gonna be 7 yards per carry instead.
They're embracing the Kevin Stefanski mindset, except on the other side here. I guess the Mike Zimmer mindset, we should say, just to be safe there for sure. 3:53 left here in the second quarter. A little play action there. This is the Stefanski that we know. Oh, long pass and almost intercepted. Man. Risky throw there for Ben Roethlisberger, but it goes incomplete. I love the aggression because why not? There's the Jay Cutler you were referring to earlier. Jay.
Yeah, I love in Madden when there's those deep balls and they're incomplete and they're like juggling it. Instead of like a real juggle like we see in real life, that just like rests on their shoulder pads for 3 minutes and they're just waiting for someone to try to grab it.
Absolutely. James Conner with the juke there, picks up a couple of yards, but that'll bring up 3rd down and long. Why you don't run on 2nd down and 10, man?
Yeah, come on, guys. Come on.
The real Steelers would know, at least when Ben's healthy. Again, we always have to have that caveat because last year was such a not great season for them.
That was a bad offensive season. I mean, good news for Steelers.
Playoffs.
Yes, good news for Steelers fans is that their defense is really pretty much intact from last season, so they should be pretty strong on that end.
3rd down and 7 completion for Ben Roethlisberger, picking up the first down as he finds Deontay Johnson there. So $6,000 for Deontay Johnson. Not doing as much as James Washington on that long play. That was a bullet by Ben Roethlisberger there. So Deontay Johnson does pop up. I'd assume that means he's the wide receiver 3 on the depth chart here for the Steelers. Down the stretch of last year, though, I mean, it really was made pretty clear that Deontay Johnson had earned a role on that team and had earned a role more expansive than that of James Washington's. I think that if we could like manually set the Madden roster, I think it would have been Deontay Johnson over James Washington, but they hadn't quite reflected that late season change yet with these rosters.
There's a lot of people who are, I've seen the tweets and the analysis of the what about James Washington kind of take. I don't really think that it's an apples to apples comparison. You know, maybe their stat lines looked fairly comparable by the end of the season, but don't forget that Deontay Johnson was a rookie last year.
Yeah.
James Washington has an extra year in the league. I love James Washington as a prospect, but you have to put all of that into context. And there's a nice play there too to James Conner.
All right, getting some targets out there too. 2-minute warning.
Yeah, but to me, if you look at what the Steelers did in the draft with Chase Claypool and then saying Chase Claypool is going to play on the outside, whereas to me he works more as like a move tight end. Chase Claypool on the outside, that's awful for James Washington because Deontay Johnson is going to be on playing near 100% of the team snaps while Juju's in the slot. And then if Claypool's going to be playing on the outside, that's going to be bad news for James Washington.
This one goes to, I believe that's to McDonald. Yeah, that was to McDonald again. Inside the 5-yard line, down to the 3. So the Steelers threatening here. First and goal with less than 2 minutes left here in this first half, trying to add on, or trying to unbreak this tie at 7-7 here. This is a FanDuel football multiverse playing out different situations. This one, what if the Browns had drafted Lamar Jackson instead of Baker Mayfield? I haven't seen a lot of Lamar yet so far, just one drive, and that's why, because the Steelers keep moving the football, and they score once again. James Conner with his second touchdown of the day. Again, $12,500 on FanDuel, and when you get a couple of touchdowns, that pretty much ensures James Conner will be in the perfect lineup for this game, and he had a massive hole and just somehow stopped right when he got across the goal line.
It was impressive awareness where the goal line was for James Conner there.
I couldn't tell if he was doing a robot or if he's like frozen. I don't know what was going on there. It didn't look natural, but it worked. So who cares?
He right now is being drafted sort of in that second tier RB2 of running backs. And, honestly, if you look at the guys in that range, whether you're looking at Todd Gurley or even a little bit later, there's maybe you like Raheem Mostert a lot. I think an argument can be made that James Conner has the highest ceiling of those players, just because we know what this, the offensive line is still strong despite some differences, different pieces there. The offense should probably be a top half one, I'd say. I think that we can confidently say that they'll be at least average. And you just combine it all, and we know that they've utilized Conner as a workhorse in the past. I do think that, an Anthony McFarland type who they drafted in the 4th round can come and be a great change of pace, because he's easily the fastest running back that they have on that team. And he can catch passes out of the backfield too. So maybe that ends up hurting Conner a little bit. But if you're looking only at the ceiling, he has a top 5 ceiling. I mean, that's the truth. We've seen it from him before. He just has to stay healthy.
I think your best argument against James Conner is that they did draft Anthony McFarland. They have some guys that could take away targets, but Raheem Mostert doesn't get targets, and he's splitting work with Tevin Coleman. So it's not as if by going with Raheem Mostert, you're avoiding the potential pitfalls of James Conner. And I feel like with Raheem Mostert, it's more certain that those issues, those roadblocks to fantasy stardom are going to be in place. Like the odds that he becomes a workhorse are minimal at best. Yeah, whereas James Conner, that's a legit possibility because we've seen it in the past.
Yeah, Raheem Mostert is the perfect example of why RB2s in fantasy football, ADP-wise, are some of the worst bets. I mean, if you're drafting an RB1, that's fine. Even if you want to go RB, if the top guys are available, it's a really good strategy this year. But realistically, going with a modified 0 RB approach where it calls for it, if you're in a PPR league with 3 wide receivers and a flex spot, you can have some really awesome teams. And I know that people will say wide receivers deep, but very rarely do you get league-winning wide receivers after round 5, whereas you do get that at running back more frequently.
Lamar Jackson with the completion here right around the first down sticks as he finds Jarvis Landry. 1:20 left to go here in this first half. And yeah, I think that there is a reason running backs wind up in that second tier, and it's because they have legitimate concerns. And a lot of times those legitimate concerns wind up playing out.
Yeah.
So that's why we see those second tier running backs fail so often. If you can find a guy with a ceiling like James Conner, I think it does make sense to go at them there. This one complete once again. David Njoku getting the reception. Lamar Jackson perfect so far. 11 yards per attempt, 5 completions on 5 attempts. Njoku gets his first reception. Couple for Odell Beckham, couple for Jarvis Landry as well. Odell Beckham for this game, $12,000. Jarvis Landry, $10,500. David Njoku was $8,500. Lamar Jackson, 2nd and 2, throws it once again, gets the completion, and a timeout called by the Browns. I believe that was Odell Beckham with his 3rd catch of the game already. Yeah, it was. Yeah. 3 receptions, 41 yards. Our second Odell Beckham stream of the year. The first one was playing out what it would look like if Aaron Rodgers got some help. We traded Odell Beckham to the Packers, and Rodgers promptly hit him on a slant, and OBJ did what OBJ does. He took it to the house after a short completion. I think that was the only reception for the entire game, though.
That was a game, too, that I would have loved to see in arcade mode.
Yeah.
Because there was some great scoring in the first half, and then it just kind of died off in the second.
Rashard Higgins gets the catch there, so Lamar spreading things out. Again, 3 to OBJ, but overall keeping the mouths fed here within this offense, and there are a lot of mouths to feed here, especially as we look forward to 2020. Austin Hooper now with the team as well. Lamar, 2nd and 6, and that one is complete. Once again,
Whoa.
broken tackle, and that's going to be a touchdown for Jarvis Landry, getting his move on, and a little crane kick. So Jarvis Landry with the touchdown for Lamar Jackson. Big boost to those of you who use Lamar. And what a sneaky move there by Jarvis Landry.
Joe Hayden just got completely owned. Just completely out of his mind owned by that move by Jarvis Landry.
Maybe he's just a plant. Still secretly loves Cleveland. Yeah,
exactly.
Joe Hayden in Madden showing his age there. And he can pick up his ankles at the door as he leaves the stadium.
Yes.
But we're going to be tied here at 14 apiece, assuming that Austin Seibert can hit the extra point. 14-13. Jarvis Landry, interesting guy because last year, even with Odell Beckham being there, still got a lot of volume. But we know Odell Beckham was banged up last year, and now Jarvis Landry had his own offseason surgery. Don't really know what his timeline is going to be, how healthy he will be for hypothetical training camp, hypothetical preseason, and that definitely makes things a little bit shaky, especially when you do add in Austin Hooper to that situation as well. So Jarvis is one of the harder players for me to diagnose, JJ, when it comes to trying to forecast 2020, just because there are several big variables involved.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're being honest, if we were to say Jarvis Landry has no concerns, if he's healthy, no big deal, I'd say he's a 5th-round pick pretty easily in fantasy and season-long leagues, maybe even a 4th. I mean, look at what he's done. He's just such a high-floor, locking-in kind of player.
Yeah.
But the injury is a little bit scary, but I think that it's all baked into his average draft position right now because you can get him later than you would expect. And there's still a pretty big gap between him and OBJ where, we have concerns about Landry's health, and maybe we don't have those about OBJ right now, but I think we should have some concerns about OBJ in this offense in general and whether or not he fits it as well as we want him to with Baker. But I do think that OBJ is going to take on sort of that Stephon Diggs role that we saw in Minnesota with Kevin Stefanski there. So he should be playing all over the field. He'll get a lot of deep targets. So I'm excited for that because I think OBJ can thrive in that kind of environment.
I think the best thing about the target distribution for the Vikings under Stefanski was that you knew where every high leverage target was going. It was to Adam Thielen or to Stephon Diggs. So even if they weren't getting like the biggest overall passing volume, they were getting the money targets, and they often converted in those money targets too. And we know that Beckham and Landry can do the same.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so a timeout here once again as the first half almost to a close, but it looks like the Steelers trying to make something happen here. 34 seconds left. Both their touchdowns so far by James Conner. The Browns had touchdowns by Nick Chubb and Jarvis Landry. On just 2 drives, Lamar Jackson, no incompletions yet thus far. Playing pretty well. Big Ben drops back to pass and gets the completion once again to Vance McDonald. It seems like just tight ends get disgusting target shares in this game.
Yeah.
Vance McDonald entering this one, $9,000 on FanDuel. Pretty lofty, I think, given the fact that he didn't get a lot of love last year. I know part of that was because they never threw, but even the year before that, didn't really do a ton, I guess.
He showed flashes is the reason that people got so excited about him. And look, he was last year in that middle round tier where that's the dead spot for tight ends in fantasy football. So I'm not, it's not as shocking whenever you look at history and how that usually plays out. And
then you add in the Ben Roethlisberger injury on top of that. It just made all those issues so much worse. Another catch there for Deontay Johnson. Again, with $6,000 on FanDuel for this game. That's not a bad salary and already a couple of receptions. So if you tried to jam in James Conner and Lamar Jackson, Deontay Johnson would have helped you do that. 14-14 here. Steelers at about midfield, 25 seconds left to go in the half. Big Ben opening things up. Completes it to Juju. They might have to call a timeout, though. Yeah, they do. Yep. They burn their final timeout as Ben went over the middle. 19 seconds left, no timeouts. And the way the Madden works is they, run the clock off, 8 seconds or so if you decide to go no huddle. So they're going to have to keep things towards the sideline here or let it rip downfield and see what happens because they don't have a lot of leeway to work with here. Yeah, it could be bad. We'll see. 2nd and inches as Juju apparently did not get the first down there. 5 wide set. Actually, McDonald was out there. He does let it rip. Come on. And it is caught. Oh, wow. What a throw downfield to James Washington. Coming through, the big play specialist from college connects with Ben Roethlisberger and gives the Steelers a 20-14 lead with not that much time left before the half. Arcade mode coming through big there.
Yeah, that was awesome. It's a fun way to end the half. But it's not over yet, technically.
That's true.
Maybe Lamar Jackson goes deep to OBJ.
I love that they have pylon cam even in Madden. This is fantastic. Absolutely perfect. James Washington's second big reception of the game. And it makes sense that big game James Washington would show up when we switch over to arcade mode as he gets a touchdown there. First touchdown pass for Ben Roethlisberger is, again, James Conner had the first two touchdowns, but 20-14 as Chris Boswell packs on the extra point. Hey, you never know. We could see a kickoff return touchdown here, too, because it has been a wild first half here in this game.
213 total yards for Pittsburgh so far in the first half, which is a total that some teams haven't hit in these Madden streams throughout the entire game.
Absolutely. We'll see what the Browns can do here. They do still have 2 timeouts, so it's worth keeping in mind, but they will also receive the second half kick. So we're going to get to see a healthy dose of Lamar Jackson here, you would assume, whether it be at the end of this half or the beginning of the next half. He had that touchdown pass to Jarvis Landry to tie things up at 14, but then Big Ben showing that elbow is okay and letting her rip there. All right, so Boswell with the kick. The Browns will return this one from the 5-yard line as the clock ticks down and no room to operate there. All right, 10 seconds left, 2 timeouts in your back pocket. You got Lamar Jackson. Just let him do his thing. See what happens.
I'm so prepared for a kneel right now. I'm just so ready for it.
My body is not ready, and I am vehemently opposed. I think Lamar was objecting to it. You saw him put his hands up there.
Yeah.
That was him saying, no, Freddie, I got this.
Yeah, call the audible.
All right, run. Why not? And he does complete it, and they will call timeout, all right?
This is the longest first half in Madden history.
I love it. More Lamar Jackson. Why not? Jarvis Landry, 4 receptions, 61 yards, and a touchdown already so far in this game. Odell Beckham, 3 receptions as well. So the high-dollar Browns getting the job done thus far. Maybe we'll see a Hail Mary here. I'd love to run like a Hail Mary type play and then just have Lamar run, see what happens.
See what happens.
I think that's what they're doing here.
That's
all right.
exactly.
So Lamar tucks it down, breaks one tackle, he's across midfield, breaks another tackle, but then taken down at the 46, and they couldn't get the timeout. We should be the coaches, I think, because that was perfect.
That was a good call.
If he had gotten tackled like a half a second earlier, it would have been even better.
Congratulations, Jim. You think just like Freddie Kitchens.
Oh, wow. That's upsetting. I've decided to retire as head coach of the Cleveland Browns to avoid further embarrassment. We go to halftime here, 21-14, couple of touchdowns for James Conner. Big one for James Washington, as we see that one being uncorked there. And then the touchdowns on the Browns side by Jarvis Landry and Nick Chubb. Reminder once again to come back tomorrow for our second stream of this week, where we see what would happen if the Patriots had kept Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster. It's Jimmy G against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Get those lineups in on FanDuel.com. Make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube page as well, because we'll be live here once again, 8 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow to get you that stream. We also have a whole lot of DFS advice here on the FanDuel YouTube page. We have a lot of our podcast posts up here for PGA, UFC, NASCAR, whatever it may be. You can find all those right here on the FanDuel YouTube page. So recommend you subscribe to that as well.
TJ Watt frozen on the field during kickoff.
Why not? I love they have TJ Watt on kickoff duty.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming, I'm hoping that it was some sort of glitch, but maybe he is out there.
It kind of looks like him second from the right. I can't tell from this angle, but I desperately hope that is actually the case. All right, so we're going to see Lamar Jackson here down 21-14, but the offense was cooking there in that first half. Lamar had that long run for 2.2 FanDuel points. Like they didn't get the score, but it's a free 2.2 points for those of you who use Lamar Jackson on FanDuel. That still counts. Doesn't matter when it happens. It still counts.
Absolutely.
They're going to open things up here so Odell Beckham next to Lamar Jackson. That's actually a pretty fun sight too. Again, we are Baker Mayfield admirers. However, this would be pretty fun to see in reality as well.
I think we can confidently say that Lamar Jackson is the better quarterback at this point.
Absolutely. Didn't look at there, but overall, that's his first incompletion of the entire game. Lamar Jackson, obviously no questions around him. I think the larger public still has questions around Baker Mayfield, though, and I think that I understand it because if you look at Baker's first 2 years, usually when we were talking about Baker Mayfield last year, we looked at what they did after Freddie Kitchens became the interim offensive coordinator, and those numbers, as Nick Chubb just trucks it, dude. Those numbers were really good for Baker Mayfield. But if you look at him for the entire season, and include the early part of the year when Hugh Jackson was there, Baker ranked 20th in passing net expected points per dropback, which is numberFire's efficiency metric. It's not bad for a rookie, but it's also not like top 10. And then last year fell to 32nd. So I understand why the questions about Baker are still there as we get a big play by David Njoku as he grabbed it and then ran after the catch. The Steelers defender tried to go for the big play. Njoku made him pay. Picks up a first down for the Browns. Baker, though, going back to him and talking about his situation, I get why the questions are there. Another mistake by the Steelers. But I get why the questions are there, but Baker was one of the best collegiate statistical prospects in college football history. He was the first overall pick, which tends to correlate well with success. He did look really good at times, and it wasn't a complete lost season last year. So personally, I'm still in on this guy very much heading into 2020.
Yeah, same with me. I think that he's fine. And I think the change with Stefanski coming in, there's been so many coaching changes with him. Hopefully he has some sort of stability there now. And Stefanski, he was run heavy in Minnesota. We'll see if that was sort of influenced by Mike Zimmer and his just general philosophy, even though he's a defensive-minded coach. But even if they are a little bit more ground heavy, I don't know if that's a terrible thing for Baker.
Right, absolutely. Especially when you have guys like Nick Chubb who came really efficient. Another completion to David Njoku. Everybody dropping some jukes on this field today as Njoku breaking tackles, getting his third reception of the game in. He's got to be up to 40-ish yards. Yeah, 60 yards for David Njoku already. I guess he had a bunch on that other completion. But David Njoku looking spry. Obviously not going to be featured as the main tight end in this offense, but they did pick up his fifth-year option, so it's not as if they've abandoned David Njoku entirely here.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a similar situation with Minnesota last year with Irv Smith and Kyle Rudolph, where they utilize them. They'll run a lot of 12 and have two tight ends on the field at the same time. And then they obviously have better threats out of the backfield as pass catchers too. So definitely a lot of good weapons for Baker to throw to.
And they were talking, I think it was last week, about how there was a possibility that Kareem Hunt could be their number 3 wide receiver. I believe in Rashard Higgins, so I'm not necessarily saying they must do this. But from a fantasy perspective, it'd be really fun to have Kareem Hunt getting targets as a receiver and then having the potential for him to get some carries on top of that. That's a pretty intriguing combination.
The Austin Eckler role, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Handoff here does go to Kareem Hunt. So Kareem Hunt getting involved in the action. His second carry, 10 yards for him. Bringing up 3rd down and 12. Maybe we'll get another Lamar Jackson scramble here because if you're going to get a scramble, you got to get a drop back. 3rd and 12. Perfect time to do so. 18-yard line for the Browns, trying to make this a tie game once again. James Washington's big touchdown is what put the Steelers on top, 21-14. Lamar does drop back to pass. Plenty of time. Throws it over the middle. This one is caught, and Jarvis Landry gets jacked up, but hangs on for the first down inside the 5.
Man, they're moving the ball so much on this arcade mode. I'm just not used to it. It's hard to react to all of this, but they're in prime position for another Nick Chubb touchdown here. Absolutely.
He's got one so far, and as mentioned, James Conner already has 2. And if anyone's going to hang on to that ball after getting hit like that, it's Jarvis Landry. He's one of the toughest dudes who's ever existed.
Yes.
Heavy formation here for the Browns. Nick Chubb back in at running back. 1st and goal from the 4. And he gets a little bit of a hole, but not quite big enough to get into the end zone. A gain of a couple there for Nick Chubb. Bring up 2nd down and goal from the 2-yard line. Nick Chubb entering this game, $13,000 on FanDuel. 1 touchdown already, no receptions, not a ton of yardage, but that 2nd touchdown would obviously go a long way. James Conner still has been the better fantasy asset, but Nick Chubb trying to even things up. All right, they go spread here. which is ideal when you are this close to the goal line. Lamar Jackson will throw, trying to run, scramble. Oh, just a bit incomplete. Looked like he had Beckham there in the end zone, but just couldn't quite hit him. Only the second incompletion for Jackson so far.
Yeah, I thought he was going to run there, it looked like, but...
Yeah, that the X Factor thing was engaged, and I was like, okay, let's boogie. Because if you're going to pay out the $15,500, that touchdown to Jarvis Landry is good, but you would love a rushing touchdown. Let's see if he gets it here. Instead, it's Nick Chubb, and Chubb gets into the end zone for his second touchdown of the day. Do a little dance. Nick Chubb paying off for DFS with his second touchdown, equaling James Conner, and getting this game within 1 point pending the Austin Seibert extra point attempt.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of scoring, and it's great to see a close game, too. Hopefully this comes down to the wire.
Nick Chubb just shoving Joel Bitonio out of the way to get into the end zone. What do you think about Nick Chubb this year, JJ? Because last year, after Kareem Hunt joined the fold, Nick Chubb was still really good. From a production perspective, he played well. But the targets weren't there. And targets matter a lot for running backs. And Nick Chubb, he ain't cheap in fantasy. So what are you thinking of him in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, look, he still had a really high running back rush share on that team. It was still, top 3 in the league. So we shouldn't worry about the amount of rushing attempts he's going to see. But what we did see is a drop in target share by about 6% with Kareem Hunt in the lineup. So I'm a little concerned about Chubb. I think that you can make the case that someone like Miles Sanders has more upside than Nick Chubb does because, he has the potential to be a true every down back. Whereas, Chubb has that ceiling cap from a target share standpoint. He's sort of like a not as good in fantasy Derrick Henry. But I will say Nick Chubb has a little bit of positive touchdown regression that should hit too versus last season. So he's not in the worst spot in the world. It's just he's not typically the kind of running back that I target in, the late first round, maybe even if he can drop to the second round.
I think the Derrick Henry comp is super interesting because from a workload perspective, things actually weren't that different towards the end of last year. Like Nick Chubb still got some targets, but so did Derrick Henry. Like they'd scheme up a screen for him every now and then. For some reason, they're highlighting Benny Snell as he comes on the field. Why not? Sure.
I mean, is he coming on the field? Is that really happening right now?
I would have to assume no, but I guess we shall see. James Conner, couple of touchdowns already. No reason to abandon ship there by any means. Okay, looks like it is James Conner out there. Gotta show Benny Snell to highlight Benny Snell, who has not played a snap in the game. You got to do it. Oh, Ben Roethlisberger can't shake off the tackle, and he is taken down for the sack. So even in arcade mode, we can get some sacks. Joe Schobert, now a Jacksonville Jaguar, getting through there.
That was a very typical Ben being a statue kind of sack.
I thought he was gonna break free because there was that little second of hesitation, where he was when he was younger, where Ben maybe
2009 Ben would have been able to escape that.
But the 2020 Jay Cutler version of Ben Roethlisberger, every play ends. We all end eventually. Just embrace the void. He completes this one over the middle for a gain of a couple to James Conner. Conner's second reception of the game. The first one actually almost got them into the end zone. 2 receptions for 19 yards for James Conner. So good rushing productivity, couple of catches, 2 touchdowns. It's a nice day for James Conner and putting himself in the prime position to be the MVP of this game over on FanDuel again. 12.5 the salary for James Conner entering this one.
Yeah, looking really good. Holes are there, too, on the ground. The Steelers' offensive line, like we said, it's a good line. I mean, it's even better, I would argue, in this game than it is now.
Wow, Ramon Foster, yeah. So that's definitely a ding.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. And so, we're seeing that play out.
Ben gets the completion. That's James Washington again. His third reception of the game. James Washington also in contention for that MVP slot. 3 receptions, 90 yards, and a touchdown. Doesn't have 2, which James Conner does have, but James Washington very easily paying off $8,500 for this game. Just getting completions, turning them into big plays, had that long touchdown. And that was kind of like the MO of James Washington coming out, was that he was going to get you big plays. We haven't seen those all the time in the NFL, but there have been I guess, like flashes of it. Just wasn't consistent, which is why we saw Deontay Johnson's role grow so much down the stretch last year.
Right, exactly. Yeah, James Washington had some insane college efficiency numbers, just absolutely absurd. And then and there's another catch for him.
Yeah.
Then we see his college quarterback come play with him. And the opposite happened.
Well, and like my thought process was, I think this is pretty cool because like when you see two players have that level of efficiency together in college, the odds that one of them is good are probably pretty high.
Sure.
And it turns out like, James Washington's not terrible by any means, but clearly not panning out as Ben scrambles right into Myles Garrett, who is not suspended in this game, which is great to see. Always enjoyable for sure. But you kind of assume that if they can average like 13 or whatever adjusted yards per attempt it was in college between Mason Rudolph and James Washington, probably one of them will be good in the NFL.
Right.
Neither pick has really panned out thus far, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's usually, that's the argument whenever we talk about quarterbacks transitioning. It's what a lot of people are saying about Tua, right? Is that he has all this talent, all this first-round talent on the team. And so you have people like Chris Sims coming out and saying that he's not as talented as Jarrett Stidham, when there's more to it than just the weapons that a player has, obviously.
Right. You got to take advantage of those.
But, you had the same situation with, like, LSU when Jarvis and OBJ were there, right?
Zach Mettenberger.
Right. So you had people who were Zach Mettenberger's really good, but it was really the fact that his weapons were just really, really good. Yeah. And so, I don't think we're looking at that with Tua per se, but, the fact that both Mason Rudolph and James Washington really haven't shown – I mean, Mason Rudolph, I think we can all say, is not going to be a starter in the NFL. Maybe James Washington is a decent, number 3 guy for a team, but – it's hard to say that either of them are going to be like Pro Bowlers.
Speaking of Mason Rudolph, overlooked revenge game here for Myles Garrett. Another completion to James Washington. I think he heard we were talking up James Conner for the MVP slot. And he's like, no, not so fast. I'm going to go nuts here at $8,500. I'm going to guess that not a lot of people had James Washington in the MVP slot on FanDuel. Just throwing that one out there. Probably wasn't a super popular pick. But James Washington certainly validating those who did decide to do so.
I think it just goes with our theory. If you guys have been watching these, this is our 8th episode, as Jim noted at the top. Like, if you guys have been watching these, then you've seen the target distribution be really flat or to just random guys in these Madden streams. It's not, I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, it's Juju and Ben. They're back together, as we see Deontay Johnson catch a pass there. People get excited because Juju Smith-Schuster is, from a Madden standpoint, easily the best overall player in Madden in last year's Madden. And so naturally you're going to want to play him. But what we're finding is that there's really flat target distribution. And I think what we should see as a result is flatter ownership for those players on FanDuel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've seen people in like chat talking about like they will like simulate it out in advance. So they may have like noticed that in the past. They'll like play these simulations out, which I think is really cool, honestly. But you can see the way the target distribution may break out. There he is again. James Washington just all over the field.
Insane.
Not like his 6th reception? 7th reception for 138 yards and a touchdown. That is disgusting.
Canton is right there in Cleveland. So I mean, they're not far from the Hall of Fame. And I think James Washington needs to stop there on his way home.
I think he's just trying to demand a trade. I love it. Force your way out. If they're going to draft Chase Claypool, get yourself a new team. Vance McDonald taking down. Oh, Juju picks it up, and he gets it for the touchdown.
Oh, my goodness. What was that?
Wow. So McDonald fumbles. Juju picks it up, and he scores. And the Steelers go on top by a touchdown. Actually, that was Nick Van Nett. Nick Van Nett with the fumble. Man. But Juju bails him out.
I wonder if he was down there. It kind of looked weird. We talk about the frame. Yeah, there's the booth review. We talk about the frame where it kind of skips a little bit.
Yeah. The previous play is under review. Now they're going to have like the 15-minute booth review because that's how things go.
We have to be
he was way down. He was easily down.
Yeah, so we're going to see maybe James Conner with his 3rd touchdown because that elbow's down there. I mean, he was down for about 13 minutes before Juju picked
I feel like
up.
James Washington has to go rogue here and say, no, I've done all this work. I have moved this football.
If they run a screen to James Washington, I'm going to lose my mind. I will lose my mind.
Already up to $138. And the clock is running again, which signals that they did overturn it. So, all right. The call on the field overturned. 2nd and goal from the 1. James Conner already 2 touchdowns today. $12,500 on FanDuel. Let's see if he can make it number 3 here. Handoff goes to Connor, and I think he's short. He is short. That's 3rd and goal. Now what do you do?
Yeah, now there's a question as to, do you spread them out a little bit, or do you just run it with Connor again? I would just run it with Connor again.
Right.
But it's 3rd down, and this is a simulation, so who knows? Look at Juju has no one on him. He snapped it quick.
James Conner gets the carry, and he's in. So he does get that 3rd touchdown on the 2nd try from the goal line. I kind of thought Myles Garrett was going to bring him down there before the line, but Conner does get through. Garrett just kind of overran it and then had to run backwards and almost pushed him over the line, actually.
This is such a James Conner during the the year without Le'Veon season. A couple years ago when Le'Veon held out. This is exactly what he did in fantasy every other week.
I was so consistently underweight on him on FanDuel as well. It was quite painful fairly often whenever that would happen because for whatever reason, I just wouldn't be as enthused. I think the targets were okay, but not big enough where I was I must prioritize this guy. And it burned me a lot. Hopefully it doesn't burn you out there watching this because he gets his 3rd touchdown of the day. James Washington left to fume on the sidelines because he couldn't get that 2nd touchdown. Honorary MVP to James Washington, though, because he has had a fantastic game.
I'm just curious as to how Benny Snell's doing now.
There he is. He's playing kickoff.
There we go.
28-21, which means we get to see Lamar Jackson in comeback mode here. 2:55 left to go in the 4th quarter. Lamar has had a fantastic day so far, as you would expect. As we move to arcade mode, kind of expect efficiency out of the quarterbacks, but Lamar has come through. The one thing you're kind of lacking if you use Lamar is not a lot of rushing, because he has just that 1 passing touchdown to Jarvis Landry, and I believe his only rush of the day so far was that rush at the end of the first half. 22 yards, so 2.2 FanDuel points, but if you could get some scrambles from Lamar Jackson here, that would go a long way towards getting to payoff on FanDuel.
Yeah, and you got to keep in mind, too, when you're building your lineups in our game, that, Lamar Jackson's overall statistics in Madden are not from his right. MVP season. So realistically, this is sort of hindsight driven, too. I'm not trying to do that to you guys. But realistically, you're paying up a high price tag for a guy who isn't as good in this game as he is in real life. So you got to always keep that in mind. That was a ridiculous.
Odell Beckham's as good in this game as he is in real life.
Odell Beckham just glided for 10 yards. He just levitated down the field.
I'm pretty sure he used flu powder, went all Harry Potter on him and just magically apparated to a new place. But the Browns will certainly take it. Beckham's had a decent game. It doesn't have the long touchdown like Jarvis Landry had, so looking to get that if he can pay off. Beckham $12,000 on FanDuel. Nice throw there by Lamar once again, and my goodness, he went through him.
Yeah, that was disgusting. That was a ridiculous move.
All right, so 2:28 left to go in this game. Beckham 64 yards, 8.4 FanDuel points, no touchdown, as opposed to Jarvis Landry, who had that long touchdown. Lots of time for Jackson, and a long pass goes out of bounds.
Have we had a punt in this game? I don't think we've had a punt. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
There was a possession that didn't result in points, I believe. I thought that the Steelers had one at one point, and then the Browns had the one that ended the first half. I don't remember how the Steelers' possession ended, though. I can't honestly recall.
I would love to hear feedback, though, any of you guys in chat, if you're curious, or I'm curious if you like the arcade mode better than the standard mode that we've been running, because we can always, we listen to feedback. We want to hear your feedback to make this experience really good. I personally am loving this arcade mode. This is a lot of fun.
The Browns' true number 1 wide receiver, Rashard Higgins, with the long reception there.
Yeah, I mean, that's how crazy it is. If that play would have happened 2 weeks ago in one of these things, I would have stopped talking and I would have gone nuts. I would have gotten out of my chair, taken my headphones out. But now it's just that's an average play in arcade mode.
JJ's spiking his headphones, going nuts. Playing with the Pedro Alvarez bobblehead in the background, doing everything.
I would have chugged my tea.
Lamar does complete this one on the sidelines to keep the efficiency rolling, but only a gain of 3. We're down to the 2-minute warning. And I feel like if you're the Browns now, you're probably not going to get an additional drive. You might want to get into a situation where, as long as the Steelers aren't taking timeouts, where you want to drain a little bit of clock to decrease the amount of time they have left, assuming that they get the ball back.
Yeah, try to force overtime, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know if Freddie Kitchens and Madden is necessarily putting that much thought into it. The odds he knows it's within the 2-minute warning, not that high. But we'll see.
I mean, you got 3rd and 6 right now too. I mean, there's a chance that they turn over on that. Not that we've seen that.
That's true.
Throughout this game, but we've seen such efficiency. We just assume they're going to score, but they're in 3rd and 6 right now. This isn't a 2nd down.
And they do go to a huddle, so they are being reactive. 3rd down and 6 here for the Browns. Lamar gonna throw, tucks it down. Ooh. He scrambles inside the 10, juke move inside the 5, and Lamar Jackson, his 2nd run of the game, 36 yards, showing off those sick moves. I think that arcade mode is just like the jukes are just otherworldly. Yeah. Everything else is normal. You just you suddenly have the ability to dislocate your hip and be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Minute 13 left, down by 7. Browns trying to tie this thing back up. Lamar had room to run, but throws it and completes it into the end zone for the touchdown to bring within a point as he finds Demetrius Harris for the touchdown to bring it within a point. For those of you who had Demetrius Harris at $5,500, I question your process, but I cannot question the results.
That's right. At first I thought it was RSJ coming back from the dead, but it was Demetrius Harris doing the exact same thing.
28-27. We will get a booster here. Okay, so maybe we'll get a second chance here. Nick Chubb, couple of touchdowns, but not a lot of yardage for him, and not a lot of passing down work. So trying to bridge that gap between him and James Conner, because Conner has 3 touchdowns now. I think depends on that right foot. If it's complete, I didn't really see
that angle. That angle does absolutely nothing for us, though.
All right, we'll get the call here from nameless referee.
I guess it stands?
I believe so.
Yep. There it is.
All right. So we're going to get Austin Siebert on here for the extra point, try to tie things up, but still some time left for the Steelers to try to regain the lead. 1:06 left in the 4th quarter, and they have all 3 timeouts at their disposal as well.
When you have Hall of Famer James Washington on your roster, the Steelers are a lock to win this game, right? At this point.
Yeah.
Minute 6.
No, the guarantee is that James Washington gets an 80-yard reception, and then James Conner gets a 1-yard touchdown.
Yeah, right. That's true. But watch for James Washington to make a big play here because he is dominating this Brown secondary.
Or we could see, return god Ryan Switzer do what he does.
Yes.
I remember back in college, Ryan Switzer, looking at his return stats, it was unfathomable how good he was at UNC. I wish we could see Ryan Switzer actually get volume in an offense, because I feel like he'd be really good, but I know intuitively that's just bias from the return stats, and of course he takes a knee.
Yeah.
We tried to hype you up.
When you have multiple teams, and my God, he has the biggest head in Madden. When you have a guy who's on multiple teams and not seeing a lot of volume on multiple teams, gotta question and say maybe this guy isn't really cut out to be a receiver, or at least a starting receiver.
Potentially, but I'm gonna let my biases run rampant here instead.
Just start to enjoy Hunter Renfrow, Jim.
I'd rather not.
Embrace Hunter Renfrow.
Are there 2 players who wear the same number but are so different? And I guess Ryan Switzer used to play for the Raiders. Used to be their slotty type guy. There are some similarities there, but could they be more different in terms of athletic profile and stuff?
Yeah, Hunter Renfrow is no different than your local accountant when it comes to athletic.
Hunter Renfrow actually is Ryan Switzer's accountant because he's 15 years older than Ryan Switzer. So that's actually true. We're not even joking. That is factually correct. Completion to James Conner. Steelers trying to drive here, but not much time left. Ben decides to just hang on to the ball, gets rid of it, and he completes it to Juju across midfield, and the Steelers call a timeout.
That was vintage Ben right there.
Absolutely. It was It was like Tony Romo. If Tony Romo had like a broken back, where you always saw those crazy Tony Romo plays back in the day where he'd break like 15 tackles.
Yeah, remember that?
Just didn't move that much.
You remember that OT game against the 49ers when Tony Romo actually broke his back and then they ended up winning? Yeah, that's just unreal. Back in the day, though, Ben was so fun to watch. Yeah. Now he's just such a statue that it's not as...
Because he was so big, but he was also simultaneously like able to like do some crazy stuff athletically, too.
Yeah, I mean, now he just does crazy things mentally that you're just like you have no idea how some of the 50-50 balls are going to turn out because he loves throwing those 50-50 balls.
Right.
So it makes it fun to watch, sort of Fitzpatrick-esque in that way. But yeah, he's not the same kind of quarterback that he used to be.
2nd down and 1. Steelers kind of in field goal range for Chris Boswell potentially. 1 timeout left. Handout goes to Connor. He gets some room, and it's about a 52-yard field goal attempt now. They have 1 timeout left. I think they're just going to play for the field goal here, which is
looks like it.
Interesting. But I guess that's what they're going to do. And
and this is Boswell coming out of a really bad year. Remember, like in this game, I'm saying.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting call. Maybe we see OT if he's not able to drill this.
Boswell has 4 extra points so far. He has no field goals. $9,000 on FanDuel. The problem is in arcade mode, if they're going to score all these touchdowns, it's a lot harder to get a Stephen Hauschka MVP situation because they're just converting every time. All right, so Freddie Kitchens is going to freeze him or ice the kicker here. Boswell getting warmed up. 28-28 here in the 4th quarter. Mike Tomlin looked surprised there for a second.
Boswell's made some big kicks in his career. I mean, this can happen. Can't
miss Chris. Can we call him that?
Sure,
why not? 5 seconds left. The Steelers trying to thwart the, I guess, Cleveland Browns debut of Lamar Jackson. All right, here we go. 52-yard field goal attempt to win it for Chris Boswell. 28-28, 5 seconds left. And the kick is good. They take a 3-point lead with 1 second left. Chris Boswell, ice in his veins, nails it to put the Steelers on top by 3.
Put Lamar Jackson at kick returner right now.
Absolutely.
That's what you got to do. That's the only way you win this game.
Maybe Odell Beckham's trying to lobby as he's right there next to Freddie Kitchens. I would love to see that. I remember there was like a time where I think it was week 1 actually, where the Cardinals were facing the Lions, and there was like a punt in overtime, and I was like, oh my gosh, put Kyler back there.
Yeah.
And let Kyler go nuts. Let's do it.
That game was awesome. Well, it ended up in a tie, but it was still an awesome game.
Because that was when Matthew Stafford was still healthy, and the Lions, like, despite having Matt Patricia, were still fun to watch when he was healthy. All right. This will be the final play of the game, and it ends uneventfully. No trickeration, and the Steelers win it 31-28 with Lamar Jackson on the Cleveland Browns. So even with Lamar, the reigning MVP at quarterback, it's still the same old Browns here in the FanDuel Football Multiverse. JJ, any takeaways for you from this game with the Steelers winning 31-28?
My biggest takeaway, honestly, is that arcade mode is lit.
Yes, absolutely. 59 total points. Hopefully you had the over on this game. I don't know. We should release betting lines on these. Why not? Let's have a little bit extra fun for sure as well. Lamar Jackson, decent day, but only the 2 touchdown passes for him at the end there. The big MVP of the game, though, was James Conner. 3 touchdowns. James Washington went nuts as well. So a really fun game all across the board. Do not forget, we'll be back here once again tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern time on the FanDuel YouTube page. We're going to see what the Patriots would look like if we put Jimmy Garoppolo under center for them against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You can still fill out your FanDuel lineups by going to FanDuel.com and getting those entered. Big day here by James Washington and James Conner. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer here at numberFire, for setting all this up. Thank you, Cal. And thank you to JJ for hanging out with me as well. Back again with you tomorrow. I am Jim Sonis saying so long for tonight. The Steelers win 31-28 here on the FanDuel Football Multiverse.